Hi, it's Mr. Kassenbader again with your next drawing lesson on shapes. This is video number 3. And if you didn't see the first two, go back and watch those first. They're really important. This was the first image that we drew, the Twitter logo. And what we discussed is my number 1 tip, and that's drawing with shapes. It's so important, guys, to draw with shapes. We talked about how we would find shapes within these logos and shapes and anything that you're drawing. So I just want to remind you, this applies to drawing anything, even drawing people. So you want to get these fundamentals down. So we drew this first using shapes only. Video 2 discusses how to draw this Snapchat logo using shapes and one other element, symmetry. All right, you're always going to look for and ask yourself whether the object has symmetry, or maybe it's asymmetrical. It's slightly the same but yet not. It's the same but different. If you see that it's symmetrical, the first thing that you want to do is draw a center line. The rest of this drawing was done by overlapping shapes, circles, triangles that we bent and curved a little bit, even parts of rectangles or cylinders. What this will enable us to do is to have a solid looking drawing. If you try to just freehand a contour of this, even for me, it goes downhill really fast. Things start to look crooked, all right, and not symmetrical, and the drawing's gonna start to fall apart. So no more contour drawings. Okay, we are going to construct with shapes, and it makes it so much easier and less frustrating to draw. And again, this method will apply to anything that you want to draw. So if you're into cartooning, drawing people, cars, this will go with you for the rest of your life, guys. And just follow along with me, drawing these simple shapes and forms using symmetry. Okay, so there's that. We're going to have some fun today. We're going to draw this guy. Shapes. Again, our number 1 priority. And symmetry. We're also going to discuss a little bit about proportion and the scale of things. So scaling or proportioning, we're going to discuss that today so that it'll help you create a more accurate drawing. Okay, so let's get to it. The first thing that I always do, what is the first thing that we're gonna look at? We're going to look to see if your drawing that you're going to draw, your picture, is symmetrical. So is this drawing symmetrical? Pretty much, yes. If we draw a line down the center, right, of Mickey's face, he is symmetrical. So what I'm going to start with is a line down the middle of my paper. And if I have you hand these in for a grade, I'm going to be looking for these construction lines. This is your work. All right, tracing this picture of Mickey on a computer is not work. You're not really doing the work. So I want to see the lines, all right? And I want you to be able to do this so that anything you ever want to be able to draw, you can do it with this method. So no tracing, okay? You can do this. Start with a center line since it's symmetrical. And then I'm going to look to see what the basic shape of what I'm trying to draw is. All right, could be a bunch of combined shapes. But right here, my biggest shape, you're always looking for your biggest shapes, is what? It's a circle, right? So that's what I'm going to start with. A very light. See how I made that off center a little bit? I'm not erasing anything. I'm just going to draw right over top of it until I'm happy with it. Okay, and I'm pretty happy with that right there. Okay. There's my circle for the main part of my face. Now, one more thing that we can look at is midpoint. This is a very simple concept, along with shapes, symmetry. I'm going to talk about scale in just a minute. Midpoint is really important. Midpoint just means middle. So I'm just going to make a little mark in the middle of my circle here. You can use your fingers. Okay, and I'll show you why that's important in just a minute. I'm kind of going a little backwards here, but I think you'll understand in a second. One of the things that we look for after we have basic shapes is what's in the middle. We're trying to divide and conquer this drawing. We're trying to simplify it. We're not trying to make it look more complicated. What do you see in the middle of this circle? Is it the nose? No. It's more like the top of the nose. Okay, so this little line here is going to represent the top of Mickey's nose, and that's where the eyes meet. All right, now the next biggest thing, what's the next biggest part of the cartoon that I didn't draw yet? Okay, that would be the ears, right? Now, this is where scale kind of comes in. You're looking at the ears and trying to compare it to other parts of what you already drew or what's in the picture. So if you look at this, and you can use your fingers, sometimes I close one eye and I'll show you a trick where you can scan it with your pencil and kind of compare things. Maybe you've seen painters do this. But take a look at this. If you measure this to this, do you see how common these are? This is actually the same size. All right, so, and Mickey, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but back in the old days, these were drawn by hand, Mickey. And the reason, one of the reasons I think Mickey Mouse, not just because of the character, but one of the reasons he was so popular is the motions were so fluid back then because he used so many drawings per second. I believe back then, Disney was using 24 frames per second. So for every second of a Disney movie, the old time ones that you see, an artist had to draw 24 of these. So many times they would use coins as templates and things because they had to draw so many of them. Okay, but there I'm using scaling. Do you see that? His ears are about half as tall as his face. So that's scaling. I'm also looking at this space in between while I was drawing, trying to keep it about the same. You know, we don't want the ears almost touching. We don't want the ears way on the side of the head. It looks like a Pokemon. We want that space. Next, I would, probably add the nose. The nose is just an oval. So it's basically like creating a circle, but just a longer movement with your arm. Okay, so you should still be using your arm movement. You can draw it this way, but I still recommend, trying to move some of your arm to that point. Okay, next are the eyes. The eyes are just a little more than half. So if this distance, if that's half, it's just a little more than half. So I'd say right up to there is about where the eyes are going to be. And there is just a tiny little space there. So I'm going to get real close to my center line here. Now you could also draw little rectangles if you want to block these eyes in. Okay, and then now you notice I'm holding my pencil the traditional way to refine my lines. So you can always try traditional way, like you would write your name, to refine things. Okay, notice that I'm also noticing that the oval here is cut off at the bottom for the eyes. Same with the eyeballs here. I think they're a little more pointy here. I'm going to make that a little more pointy. Okay, next we have the mouth. When I look at the mouth, I could mark about where the top of the mouth starts and the bottom of the mouth. I'd say the nose is maybe a little bit bigger than the mouth, so I'm going to say maybe about there. Notice that I'm making connections here. Notice if I drew an invisible line through the nose, that's about where the corner of each mouth is. Okay, so somewhere in here is where the corners of my mouth is going to be. Okay, and it's just a matter of drawing a circle here. This is like kind of like half the circle, right? And then I'd say from here to here, it's kind of another half circle type of shape. Again, I've been doing this for 30 years drawing, so this comes a little easier to me, but if you stick with me on this, I promise you're going to get so much better at drawing. I'm going to add another part of a circle here just for the bump of the chin. You see the bump? I'm just adding a little bump to that. I could even bring this up a little bit. It looks to me like this space here is much thinner. So I'm not going to erase yet, but I could bring that up a little bit. Okay, last thing is this widow's peak that he has. So it starts maybe about here where that point is. There's another point kind of even with the middle of the eyeball here. So somewhere in here is where that other corner is. Okay, so something like that. Part of a circle, right? These are just two ovals as well. Okay, here's two overlapping circles. And there you have it. There's Mickey Mouse. I'm just going to outline it real quick so you can kind of see what it looks like. I know it's a little hard to see on video until I Sharpie it. Again, you do not have to Sharpie yours just yet. If you don't want to, you can if you want to, but maybe you have thinner ones. I'm using some really bold ones. So I would recommend, if you decide to outline yours, use a thinner Sharpie. This is really thick and I don't know, it just gets a little bit sloppy looking. Just a little too heavy for what the cartoon actually was meant to look like. So use a thin Sharpie or even a pen might work. But these are a lot of fun to draw and very relaxing. If you want to get better at it too, if you have a younger relative, brother, sister, teach them how to do this. You'll be amazed. They'll think you're their hero, and they'll be amazed at how good of an artist you are if you show them how to do this. And it helps you become better at doing this just by teaching someone else. All right, so give that a try. Do it with me. Rewind it. Watch it a few times till you get the hang of it. Please leave all of your construction lines in the work. Do not erase anything. You can do that later after I grade all your work. But show me your work. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.